Most people hear that I own 6 properties and assume I'm making money hand over fist. But the truth is, when you're early in your investing journey like I am, the numbers often look very different to what you might expect. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. I'm Ed, an economist and property investor at Opes Partners. And in this video, I'm going to break down exactly how much money I really make from properties. And I'll take you through a few of my own properties before we take a step back and reveal exactly how much I make. And I guarantee it will be a lot different to what you think. Now, the first property I ever bought was this 2-bedroom apartment in Christchurch, which is right in the middle of the city. And there are always 2 numbers that I really care about when we're talking about how much money I make. The first is how much it's gone up in value, and the second is what does the cash flow look like? Now, I paid about $385,000 for this property, and it's gone up in value. If I had to take a stab in the dark, it's probably worth about $500,000 right now. So it's gone up by, what's that, 116 grand? I mean, a few years ago at the peak of the market, I actually got it valued and the registered valuer said it was worth $580,000. So at one point it had made almost 200 grand, but obviously property prices have fallen. Now, take a look at the cash flow right now. It actually currently costs me about $130 a week to hold on to this property. And that's because although I earn $515 a week worth of rent, I am still paying some amount of tax and I've still got some principal payments I'm making. I'm paying down the mortgage. Now, if I was reviewing my own portfolio, which I kind of am right now, and if I was following all of the exact steps I talk about in my other videos, I'd look at this and say, well, hang on, why am I paying down the debt on this investment? And the answer is simple. It's because I used to not own my own home 12 months ago. Now I do, so I really should focus on paying down my home mortgage rather than paying down debt on my investment properties. Now, if I was to switch that across and make that loan interest only, it'd only cost me $11 a week this year, and from next year, it should start to make me money. Only a little bit though, about $35 a week from that. So that'll be good, it'll pay for itself. But there's a really good lesson here in that you should relook at your properties every now and again, because the setup that I had a year ago isn't best practice anymore because my situation changed. I bought a house. And while I think that this property has gone pretty well for me, it's gone up in value, the cash flow could be positive next year, the reality is probably a little less glamorous as you might have thought if you've watched all my other videos. But I wanted to record it because this is really like pants-dropping honesty here. And if you want to run the numbers, just like I'm doing in this video here, you can create your own free Opes Plus account. This is a tool that I built for you guys here on the channel, and I'll drop a link to it down in the description. Now, let's compare that to another property I bought. Now, I bought this one literally right at the peak of the market, November 2021. And I bought it for 625 grand, and I reckon it's worth about $580,000 now. So yeah, I ain't an investment genius. I'm just a normal guy like you guys. And I lost $45,000 on this property so far on paper. Now, if I continue to hold this property for the next 20 to 30 years like I plan to, there is literally zero doubt in my mind that it'll go well and probably make a good lot of money. But right now, I'm in the same situation as a lot of other property investors in New Zealand, where you win some, you lose some. And look, I could hide this and not show you this to try and make myself look better, or I could just tell you the truth and say, hey, I'm going through the same thing that a lot of you guys might be going through as well. Because then when I say in my other videos that sometimes you buy a property, it goes down in value, you guys will know that that's not just me reading theory from a textbook. That is also my reality. It's happened to me too. But the yield on this property is not so bad. I'm pretty happy with that number. It's higher than the average for most other properties in Canterbury. And this property cost me just about $112 a week to hold. And that's actually the reality for a lot of properties. The rent covers the mortgage, but there are a lot of other costs that the rent doesn't necessarily cover, so I've got to pay those. And it's funny that just literally the day before recording this, I saw this article that was talking about that roughly 50,000 property investors, 41% of them around New Zealand, are in the same situation. You top up your properties because you are early in your journey and your mortgages are quite large right now. But the way that I think about it, saving $100 a week means, just over $5 grand a year invested into this property. But if this property goes up in value by 5%, well, that's $29,000 in a year. So that's why I personally like property. But at the moment, it's lost money. There's no sugarcoating it. That's the way it is sometimes. And just before we look at the next property, at this point, some people might start to feel a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, it's a property investor online talking about how much money they're making or investing. And you might think, well, this doesn't really sit right with me. And I kind of think that's a good thing. Like, that's a sign that something really important is happening. I'm sharing this today because of something you might not know about me. I grew up in a WINS office, work and income office. And most people, when they hear that I grew up in that office, you kind of assume the obvious. You might picture a childhood shaped by unemployment and government forms and those waiting rooms with the flickering fluorescent lights. And that's kind of partly right, but there's a twist to it. My mum was actually sitting on the other side of the desk. She was a single mum raising 4 kids, helping others who had no income and no job. And so I did spend part of my childhood literally spinning around on the wheelie chairs in the WINS office. And the way I think about it, most economists discover inequality through textbooks, but I discovered it by listening through that plastic divider between my mum's desk and the waiting room. And while I saw poverty in that small town I grew up in, I also had a really good friend, and she lived a few streets over. And it turns out her dad was the first CEO ever in New Zealand to earn $1 million salary. He was a guy called Craig Norgate, and he grew up in that small town too. And he didn't just earn $1 million a year. He proved that you could make something of yourself even if you came from our postcode. And that fired me up more than you can possibly imagine. You see, my hometown didn't just teach me about poverty, it also taught me about possibility. Now, I am not saying at all that I'm the next Craig Norgate. For one thing, I don't own a suit that expensive, but that's why I like to show you these real numbers, to prove to you that going after wealth isn't reserved for people with perfect childhoods or with finance degrees. Because it turns out that spinning on a wheelie chair in a WINS office could literally be the first step in your financial plan. And if you're not a fan of property investing or property investors, that's all good too. At least you now know what you're fighting against. And the last property I'll show you before I show the whole portfolio, this one is actually just about to settle. It's one of these Queenstown townhouses. Now, this one cost about $800,000 with just over a 5% yield, which is actually pretty good for Queenstown, which is a very expensive and low yielding area typically. But because I've just bought it, it hasn't made me anything yet, right? It hasn't gone up in value, and the cash flow, we're putting some money into this, but it's about $98 a week is what we're going to have to top it up by. And again, the rent covers the mortgage, but there are other costs too. And the plan for us is to wait for it to go up in value, and ultimately that's part of what investing is. You put money in and you forecast that over time you'll make a half decent return. Now, if you zoom out and look at the whole portfolio, at most it costs me $480 a week to own those 5 investment properties, and I've excluded my own home here because that's not really an investment. And the other thing I'd say is I own some of these properties with other people and we split the costs. Actually, it's a bit less than $480 a week, but that's a feature I still need to build into Opes Plus. We're adding new features all the time based on your guys' feedback. But if I was to add up all of the capital gains, it's probably a couple of $100,000. And I don't know if this cash flow and that level of capital gains is more or less than what you thought it would be. But what I will say is that I'm still early in the property investing game. And that's why Andrew and I do this channel together. He's been investing for over 20 years and has made a lot of money. I've been investing for 6 or 7 years and I'm not there yet. I'm still building, I'm still learning. But if you put 2 people side by side, one owns 5 properties and the other owns none, and everything else is equal, who's more likely to be ahead in 30 years? Well, it's probably the one who owns 5 investment properties. And if hearing these numbers has you wondering, well, how could this all work out for me? Well, now's a really good time to create your own strategy. And you can actually book a free call with one of my financial advisors at Opes Partners, where they'll run the numbers for you and build that long-term plan based on your income, your goals, and your starting point. I'll put the link down in the description. So that is where I'm at. 6 properties, 5 investments, 1 own home, and I'm still early in the game. Now, am I rolling in cash? No, I'm not. Do I regret it? Absolutely not. Because I have a great deal of confidence that over the long term, this is going to work out for me. And one of the things that gives me that confidence is seeing other investors who have been in the game longer and have been extraordinarily successful. So in the next video, you're going to hear from an investor who owns 43 investment properties, and the one thing he wishes he'd figured out much earlier. Go watch that next.